Welcome to the webinar, Data-Driven Reporting, an Essential Components of Real-Time Economy. Basically, in a nutshell, what should we do and how can we do things that make everyone's life easier? Whether it's the end consumer on one hand, being companies and businesses who spend endless amounts of hours, minutes, seconds of time on reporting, of data analysis, when they actually could do other things that actually create better data, which they need, and how we can cut time on those people's hands when they don't actually need to do that. So how can we use methods and technology, software available today to create data-driven reporting? Welcome to this 2 hours of webinar, where we're going to look at two different perspectives. We're going to see public sector initiatives. Where are we now? Where are the public actors, state actors, what they have done and what visions they have for creating better real-time economy opportunities for different stakeholders. The second session of today's webinar, we will look at the private sector initiative. How are different companies, vendors and software developers involved in creating better real-time economy, and how we can focus on creating possibilities for data-driven reporting. My name is Kristen and I will be the moderator for today and spend the next 2 hours with you while we listen to different perspectives from different people who are very equipped to talk about how our lives can be changed and how they can be made easier with technologies and capabilities and possibilities available to us today. That is the purpose of today, to look at what data-driven reporting is, what it can be, what are the next steps in the future, and also how this forms an essential component of real-time economy. You also can be involved in today's webinar. We're going to have different people speaking on different perspectives. And you at home or wherever you suddenly are and listening to this webinar today, or if you're watching it afterwards, you have the opportunity to also speak your mind and ask questions from presenters today. So in order to do so, we're using the Slido app, which you can access either from itl.ee from the website. There you will have the opportunity to ask questions from the presenters here today. And also a link should have been sent to your email within the invitation to today's webinar. So please do find Slido app and the environment where you can ask questions so that you can get the best out of this webinar today. For several of today's speakers, the questions will be asked immediately after their presentations. Some of those presenters, unfortunately, are unable to be here today, but the questions that you are going to ask will be answered afterwards. So don't worry, even if you don't hear your question being asked here today, that doesn't mean that you will be answerless, and the answers will be given after today's webinar. So let's jump in, and let's jump in with someone who is exactly in the middle of this conversation, someone who uses reporting daily, that's their job. And let's look at an accountant's perspective. So to start off and introduce our main topics of today, we have Margus Tammeraja, who is from the Association of Estonian Accountants. He is a real visionary of real-time economy and data-driven reporting as well. And like a true visionary, he knows what the future path might be, but also knows that this won't happen today, tomorrow, but maybe it will happen the day after tomorrow. So introducing this idea, introducing where we are today and what are the needs of accountants, I present to you Margus Tammeraja.
Hello, this is Margus Tammeraja, Chairman of the Board of the Association of Estonian Accountants here. And I'm doing a brief introduction to data-driven reporting and accounting. To get a background, then in Estonia we have approximately 1 133,000 businesses which have to hand in annual reports. And from this 133,000, we have about 100,000 which are VAT liable companies, which have to hand in reports every month. And basically, for all these companies, we have approximately 13,000 accountants. So for 10 companies, one accountant. And mostly the accountants work today for independent accounting practices or in shared service centers. So the traditional accountants, they are kind of outnumbered by the shared service providers. So it's only 5,700 accountants left inside the companies to do the job. So the cost of accounting, if we try to calculate how much the bookkeeping and reporting and stuff costs, is estimated approximately 210 up to 270 million euros, which is a staggering 0.7 up to 0.9% from GDP. And if we calculate together all those service costs, wages for direct accountants, and IT costs, then we get to this figure. And we can see that if we automate heavily, then the expected cost savings might be about 30 to 60 million euros. And if we think about exporting accounting as a service, then we could increase the exports 20 up to 25 million euros per annum. So this is the framework. And statistics has been telling that in some companies, in larger companies, some accountants might even spend 1/3 of that time to fill in the traditional reports for statistics and tax authorities and vice versa. Basically, what we are looking at with real-time economy here, and what is actually real-time economy? We can define real-time economy as an environment where financial and administrative transactions connecting citizens, businesses, public sector entities are in structured, standardized digital form. And they're generated automatically, and they're completed increasingly in real time. So without traditional storing and forwarding processes. So all accountants are very familiar with this procedure when they have to make the file and then upload the file, or log into authorities portal and then key in all the data and so on and so on. This is past. So the future should be real-time connectivity. And this real-time economy concept was actually created in Finland, in Aalto University, and Bo Harald has created the roadmap for real-time economy also for Estonia. But Sirli Heinzo will be talking more about real-time economy and its initiatives in Estonia after me. But what does it mean for accountancy? What kind of innovation can be expected? And of course, real-time economy pushes towards real-time reporting. And if we think about where this real-time comes from, then the real-time reporting is very much familiar to every company. And today, everybody is accustomed with the systems where they enter the data, and the data is gathered nearly real time to the company's reports. So the same concept could be used towards the whole society or whole economic sphere. So real-time reporting over all these companies. And we see that the future of reporting is data-driven, which means that instead of collecting data, aggregating it, filling in traditional reports will be gone. So we simply hand over data records. Of course, there are a lot of challenges. First and widely known is inertia. If something has been done in the same way for long years, for decades, for centuries, then it's very hard to let it go. So all accountants are kind of focused on that. Yes, we have to do reports for every 10th or every 20th of every month, and so on and so on. And definitely we have to look thoroughly for the adaptability issue as well. Some data can't be collected via accounting transactions, and we are talking about data-driven reporting when we can provide the actual accounting records on the detail level. But this can't be adapted very easily to all situations, what can be expected in the world. And the most important issue, after all, is how to assure that the data we collect is a quality data. But I'm going to talk about this a little bit later. Basically, data-driven reporting is that instead of aggregations, we send in postings data or accounting entry level data. And for this, we have to have a universal taxonomies in place so that everybody knows exactly what one data field means, and everybody uses the same classifications and lists and so on. A couple of years ago, Estonian authorities, tax authority, Estonian statistics, Estonian bank, initiated a project which was called Reporting 3.0. And during this project, we were looking at different kind of standards what could be used for utilizing data-driven reporting concept. And then we came upon XBRL, which is Extensible Business Reporting Language. And we found the extension for XBRL, which is Global Ledger. And XBRL Global Ledger Framework seems to be the best suited for data-driven reporting, as this creates basically a standard where we can basically depict any kind of economic transaction in a very standardized and formalized way. And if you think about the annual report, which can be transferred to state already for 10 years in the XBRL format, then everybody would like to see what is behind those figures on the balance sheet or income statement. And then we come to XBRL Global Ledger concept. So basically we have a transactional level data. We can look at exact economic transactions, what make up the report. And if we go further with the details, then basically this global ledger concept means that all the entries are classified into 3 types of records. And if everybody can think about invoice as an example here, then invoice has a header, as a VAT totals, as invoice rows. And this is exactly what we are doing with the transactions or accounting entries in the general ledger as well. We have a general ledger header with all the header details. We have VAT totals, and we have detailed rows for all items, goods, services, with all their classifications. So basically, looking at an invoice is something what lets you get an easy grasp what is this transaction looking like in general ledger framework. But the data quality, how to assure that the exact details what we have in the global ledger are correct. And the first and the most important thing is that we use standardized classifications and lists. And of course, those standardized classifications and lists have to be somewhere maintained. And the best owner for these master databases is statistics or tax authorities, or whoever actually collects the data, what we hand over in the reports right now. So all these classifications and lists have to be available publicly and have to be available for automatic updates by accounting software. So accounting software actually has to act in the same way. We have to have universal controls for all those standard data fields. So data fields are put in place by XBRL GL taxonomy framework. And we provide via publication of the classifications, the contents for those data fields. So every accounting software which lets accountants to enter something has to have the control that this data, what is filled in, is validated and is correct according to the classifications and lists provided by statistics or tax authorities. So what is actually going to happen if we have a lot of detailed data in all companies' accounting software at general ledger level? Actually, we're talking about data abundancy, because we have to have forwarding all the details with all the transactional records we get and we issue. So basically, storing data is not a problem today. We have a millionfold more data in the world already today compared to, let's say, decades ago. So storage is so inexpensive that we don't have to care about storing some pieces of data in the sales ledger and some pieces aggregated into general ledger. So we can store every bits and pieces for, let's say, invoice on the detail level in general ledger. And this actually creates a lot of possibilities for reusing the data, which is already created and received. So if we think about sustainability and environmental accounting, then we can easily store the data, what we receive from the manufacturer about some materials or goods with all the environmental classification items included. And then we can later use it in the future for, let's say, packaging reports or any kind of environmental reports. And of course, it's very much important that if it is so much detailed data floating around, then every accountant is happy when the once-only principle for data entry is used. And if we follow this principle and if we don't, let's say, mess up the data, then we can ensure that the data we collect at our company's level and we forward to the authorities is exact, correct, and validated. And basically, this data-driven reporting approach means that we have a lot more sharing possibilities in the future. So we can think about, let's say, sharing the data at transactional level with the third parties, for instance, with my bank or with my insurance company or with some of my partners. And we don't have to think about creating special reports or ask or answer that queries which they might have. So if we have made our data publicly available to those third parties, then we can have a meaningful data sharing as well. I think this is a brief introduction to a data-driven reporting concept. And as you can see, it is pretty simple, but it's very hard to follow. So the next presenters will show in more exact way what exactly has been done in statistics or what is going to be happening in tax authorities side, how they will receive the data, and what kind of systems there are in place already today to facilitate the data-driven reporting for every company all over the country, all over the world. Thank you very much. And if you have any questions, then I'm open here for answering. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Margus, for this excellent introduction into the topic. As it is evident, I am not an expert in accountant. I am in a board of a small NGO, so I do see reporting all the time, but thank you for this excellent introduction into what we're speaking about today. So Margus is also here live with us, and we get to ask a question to him from one of the audience members. So we got the question of, will it be the same reporting, the same kind of information and content tomorrow that it is today? And also perhaps related to that, what changes for the accountant, what they should take into account in the tomorrow's perspective?
Thank you for the question. I think all the accountants are worried about exactly the same things. What we can tell about reporting contents, then the report contents will be basically same. The only thing what is going to change is the format and the way we gather the data for reports and the way we file them in with the tax authorities or statistics. So as I already told in introduction, then the most important thing is to get the data quality thing correctly done. So accountants are like data pilots of the future. Accountants have to assure that all the details, all the classifications, all the list items are validated and are correctly entered into accounting systems. So this, I think, is the most visible and feelable change what is expected for an accountant.
Thank you, and thank you to Margus. We will now move on. After this introductory speech, we will now move on to the first session, or the first block of stakeholders that we're going to look at today. And the first part is the public sector initiative. So as there are many relevant actors who need to work together in order to have this real-time economy and to make changes into the way people are used to doing things and making people's lives easier, the initiative from the state actors is definitely one that starts it, or at least supports it in a tremendous way. So we're going to hear from Sirli Heinso. She comes to us from the Ministry of Economic Affairs and Communications. She has been involved with the topic of real-time economy since 2016 and has been active about it ever since. So she will talk about real-time economy vision 2020 to 2027 and also other initiatives in the EU. So what steps should be taken in the next few years? What can be taken and how we're going to move towards a better real-time economy and also data-driven reporting. So, Sirli, please.
Hello, I am Sirli Heinso, Real-Time Economy Project Manager at the Estonian Ministry of Economic Affairs and Communications since the end of 2019. And since 2016, I have led the coordination of the Internet of Business project at the Estonian Association of Information Technology and Telecommunications, helping to find funding for various Internet of Business project activities in cooperation with association members. Today, I will present the vision of the real-time economy 2020 and 2027 in Estonia that has been created in a joint cooperation between private and public sector, which also includes a work plan with the same timeline. In more detail, I will share the action plan for 2021 to 2022 on today's topic of accounting and reporting. Also, a brief overview of actions in cross-border cooperation is given. So what is real-time economy? Being an entrepreneur today means doing a lot of administrative support activities in addition to doing business such as reporting to the state, paperwork, time-consuming accounting processes, and so on. The real-time economy allows everything to be turned into more automatic and background activities, in specific the technical form of the data and not the content. And the way it is entered, transmitted, exchanged will be changed. Thus, we move from paper and PDF-based documents and reports to machine-readable data that will be exchanged automatically and based on the consent of the entrepreneur and directly from their systems to the state or third parties' systems. By this, we mean not only accounting software, but also warehousing systems, supply chain, and other software that supports the company's business processes. It is important to emphasize that the validity of the data protection rules remains the same, and the compliance becomes more effective. Carrying out the analysis and making proposals necessary for the transition to the real-time economy is also set in different governmental strategies. It can be said that the implementation of the concept of the real-time economy has already begun. Together with Nordics and Baltics, we have taken joint international and national steps towards real-time economy, including developing a joint real-time economy flagship initiative for the Baltic Sea region. So in the future, we want to systematically and thoughtfully implement the real-time economy as a cross-sectoral and cross-border concept, which is why the ministry, in cooperation with representatives of ministries, associations, and the private sector, has developed a real-time economy vision for 2020 and to 2027. To create the vision, the ministry procured a concept creating study. As a result of the study, the ecosystem of the real-time economy visible on the slide was described, according to which the transition to the real-time economy requires important core infrastructure, for example, structured business data, universal standards, supportive IT infrastructure, and legal framework. Also, the benefits of the real-time economy were described for business, public sector, and citizens. The study also identified key obstacles like lack of understanding of the real-time economy, lack of resources, organizations' reluctance to change or maybe fear, also data quality issues and outdated systems. Potential risks identified include cybersecurity, data leaks, over-standardization, and digital insulation. As a vision of the real-time economy, we want to implement a structural change in the administration and management of the company by improving data quality through standardization and applying digital technologies, such as AI and blockchain technologies, to automate operations. In this vision, we do not propose anything completely new or revolutionary, but rather innovative improvements to the existing ecosystem to take advantage of today's technical possibilities, such as improving the reporting to the state, but also improving automatic and standardized data exchange in business-to-business transactions. The transition to real-time economy will not happen overnight. We depending on the field and sector and their needs, the right pace and relevant and up-to-date targets need to be chosen. It is important to emphasize that using real-time economy solutions does not cut off the company, state, or institutions from the solutions previously used. So it is easy to convert machine-readable data into paper or PDF documents if necessary, and vice versa. So if your international partner is not yet at the same technological level as you can use this solution. To implement the vision, 3 main directions for actions have been created. The first one is creating the technical capabilities. The second one is regulating and supporting the transition to real-time economy. And the third one is the cross-border cooperation aspect. These lines of action are based on common strategic sub-objectives across sectors. The sub-goals show the project and initiatives currently on the table. The sub-objectives are the wider use of e-invoices, e-receipts, e-way bills, the transition to data-driven reporting, cross-border standardization of product and service information, controlled, trustworthy sharing of business data, and in addition, piloting new innovative solutions and active cross-border cooperation. In red, I have pointed out the most important objectives for today's webinar. So, what are the activities in the work plan for these objectives? 2020 was the year for vision and roadmap creation. 2021 is the preparation year to achieve the roadmap objectives in the next years, meaning analysis and research projects, pilots, and first steps towards development activities. These activities shown in the slide, are not final and may have extra during these coming years. From the ministry, we have communicated that yes, we have the roadmap until 2027, but more detailed plan for every next year will be revised and complemented based on the situation on the market. Additionally, we have started discussion on a possible support measures to reach the increased number of users more quickly. However, it will mainly depend on 2021 and the results of the analysis and research projects to understand the market situation. We can solve the reporting obligation of companies with the state primarily through the creation of and standardization of unified taxonomy for the datasets on which the reporting is based. This means first mapping today's reporting obligations by all public authorities and then analyzing in more detail the datasets, standardizing them and introducing a common taxonomy across the authorities. We have planned to use the XBRL-GL standard, which has also been already introduced in the Reporting 3.0 project, and is expected to be used in the future to fulfill most reporting obligations. XBRL-GL is a structured XML-based format for transmitting information that is suitable for faster, more efficient, and less costly transmission, processing, and analysis of business and financial information. This year, it is planned to create a general model and roadmap for state agencies, which will help analyze, standardize, and unify their reports and their data sets in the coming years. The aim of the model is for all agencies to use a common approach and logic. And the roadmap aims to help us be as effective as possible. For entrepreneurs, these mentioned activities create basic opportunities to not have to submit the same data to the state several times, and that the data already submitted could be used by different authorities. Thus, we are supporting the implementation of the once only principle. From the if we look at the wider scope of EU principles and strategy papers, the real-time economy supports the EU-wide digital single market, is a strategically important part of the EU data economy, and uses the same tools as these initiatives to achieve their goals, such as common data exchange standards, platforms, semantic standards, joint data spaces, and innovative technologies. The objectives and deadlines set out in real-time economy vision are in line with the action plan created in the Nordic Smart Government project, the real-time economy related project developed and run by the Nordics. Diginno is a unique network for innovative solutions in public-private cooperation to speed up the process towards the Baltic Sea region digital single market. For example, KYC, ECMR, e-receipt, and the first version of the Baltic Sea region RTE action plan for e-invoicing and e-receipt have been born from this project. Based on the result of the Diginno project, Baltic Sea region countries have given their expected next steps and timeline on general RTE e-invoicing, and e-receipt. We are seeing quite similar view here, and thus from wider scope, we see ourselves in the same level of maturity, which gives us great opportunity to test and pilot new innovative ideas, start cross-border collaboration projects, and build strong stakeholder network. Together with Baltic Sea region countries, we are also currently building a cross-border real-time economy flagship project for coordinating our activities in the field of RTE, to develop new ideas, to start new cross-border pilots and learn from each other. We have already identified 3 thematic platforms. The first one is accounting and reporting, which is today's theme mostly. But there are also e-logistics and circular economy. Now, the next 3 slides are full of information. I won't go over these, but I have outlined some of the important examples, or maybe interesting examples. What is it like if we live in a real-time economy world? So the citizens and businesses use various real-time economy solutions on a daily basis, such as e-receipts and automated data-driven reporting in the public sector. Annual reports and monthly declarations are not required, at least not in a traditional way. Companies can easily share their company data with their partner on request to be trustworthy and make business quicker. And the entrepreneur spends more than 90% of his time in the core business and invests in the development of new innovative products and services. Also, great things can happen in e-commerce and road transport. Already mentioned ECMR prototype. Also, more efficient, high quality and automated anti-money laundering processes can be done. The combination of real-time technologies with, for example, blockchain technology and automated data storage technologies allows the customer to track the entire product supply chain thanks to digitally mapped and standardized product information. So in real-time economy, people have more quality time to invest in new products and services, spend more time with their family, or just enjoy life in a hammock. Thank you. And if you would like to reach some more information about real-time economy or the vision and roadmap, please find the links in this slide.
Thank you, Sirli. We also are fortunate enough to have Sirli here live with us today to answer a question that we have about her presentation. So throughout both of the presentations already, it has come to light that cooperation, as with any big important initiatives that change a lot of things, cooperation is probably the key. You from the public sector, how can you describe on real-time economy and specifically on data-driven reporting, how is public and private sector cooperation been, and do you think it needs any improvements? What can be done about that?
I think, hello again, I think it has been very good. If we take, for example, this data-driven reporting, I mean, real-time economy is a wider scope. But if we look at the data-driven reporting, then I think public sector and private sector have moved towards the same objective, although in different projects. We are also going to hear about the reporting 3.0 right away. So you can see that we have the same objective. We are in close cooperation between public and private, but still solving issues in either public or private sector part to get this data flow moving.
Thank you, Sirli, and thank you for being here. So as Sirli already mentioned, we're moving on to another important state actor or public actor whose initiative is vital to successes in real-time economy and specifically today data-driven reporting. So Statistics Estonia is one of the most important parties who leads the way of development and cooperation of data-driven reporting from public sector, and thus forms a vital partner, strategic partner, in order to gain successes. So from Statistics Estonia and about Reporting 3.0 project, we have Andres Kuke. Do not forget to ask questions through the Slido app. You can gain access to that from the itl.ee website or from the invitations to this webinar that you reached from your email. So Andres Kuke from Statistics Estonia about Reporting 3.0.
Hello, everybody. My name is Andres Kuke. I am from Estonia, specifically from Statistics Estonia. And today my intention is to give you an overview about Reporting 3.0. Let me start saying that Reporting 3.0 is not just an idea or any future plan. This is a solution that actually works. So it's a real thing, and I'm a person who likes very much the practical approach. So how we got started? It was actually 5 years ago when Estonian government created a program, and the program was called Zero Bureaucracy. And what it means was aimed to provide for private sector the possibility that they should have a minimum and possible obligation and duties related with government. And one of those duties is always to give information back to government. So in aim of on that the government can fulfill their own roles. And moving on from there, one of the topics is to answer any of questioners. In other words, to provide data for statistics. And if you're looking this for government or business perspective, when the business users, they are not willing to go on our portal and filling the forms, any of forms, because it consumes the time. And we're not willing to do any additional task. And for business perspective, we're willing to have possibilities, but the same data can be used in different parties. And also companies, they are waiting, but if they are giving some information, that they can get something back. And we as a statistic office, we can give information back, an example to compare the company with different focus groups. So in summarizing that the principal idea of Reporting 3.0 is very easy. No human interaction between the company who is offering ERP software or accounting software and the government. And the data which will be sent from company to government at the same time, it's very important that each institution in government will have a same version of data. And if you're talking about for real time, it actually means at the moment that the data can be sent on daily basis or on monthly basis. For statistic office, we are producing statistic once per month. So it's even enough to send this information once per month. And here you can see the summary about the benefits. As I said before, that Where is one of the benefits that all data can be sent directly, so there are no manual or duties related to go and our portal. And one of the important benefits is that if government is changing laws, and it's actually happened, when entrepreneurs, we should not do anything change, but we as a government, we do the changes. An example, if there are new taxes or the new forms or new classifications, that we can aggregate those data, and companies should not do anything. Also, if we take the information, we're not willing to take all information, only this information which is needed, so in minimum and aggregated way. And also, if we take some information, examples of information or tax information, there are various questionnaire forms, and we can fulfill those if we get data at once, we can fulfill many of those forms at with one data delivery. And as Markus pointed out, it's very important to have the same taxonomy. But if we're looking over the world, that in different topics, we have a different taxonomies. An example, sales or purchase, there is products involved. But if we're looking at product classifications, there are different classifications all over the world. There are EU-owned classification, there are United Nations own classification, there are OECD-owned classification. And if we're trying both to harmonize or to get information without harmonizing, when companies should relate their own classification or own product with different classification. And we will see as a government that we should harmonize, and we did it in Estonia. So we harmonized all those 4 classifications and merged them into one classification. So the company now has only duty to do mapping between one classification and their own internal classification. As I said, this is a practical thing, and where we are at the moment, or what is working at the moment. Currently, we have put into work the first stage, and it means that the information about the salary wages can be sent into Statistica Estonia. And there are more than 7,000 companies who are included into these forms, and they should have this obligation. But now they can do it from their own software system. So they should not go to any other portals to fulfill these forms. And as you can see, in this report, I just took a screenshot about this form, but there are a lot of cells and information which should be inserted manually. And information that what companies should now send for us is we just made the data model, and as you can see, here is 32 data elements. Some of those you can see that there is in the end of a line you can use the axis. That means that this is not a free field text or is numeric text. It's a classification. So it belongs some kind of taxonomy, and in those data fields where it's needed, that company will do the data mapping. And going more practically, if in audience somebody is more technical, here you can see the data model, the data transformation as I said before, the format or the standard that we use is XBRL. global ledger. And in technical perspective, it's kind of XML file with our own headers and own things. And the format, the data format, is JSON format. And in the end, if we're getting this file and parsing that file, we're getting 5 different data tables, which we can from which we can find the necessary information. And if sorry, let's take one step back. Yes, and if somebody are willing to know more about the architecture that we created, and here is a picture just describing briefly and giving an overview about this architecture. And this first stage is in entrepreneurial side. That means that they have some kind of ERP software. It can be hosted in cloud as well. And they have duties over creating the file itself, to map this file against the taxonomy, which is provided by government. This is a line in below that they can read. Our taxonomy is in machine readable format. And of course, there is needed some kind of error and log handling if they are sending the files. There should be some logs should be kept that they can control later. Where yes, file was sent in this time and by this user. In the middle, we use the X road. This is Estonian famous, let's say, the data transportation layer that's unified, has their own standard, and the companies can authenticate themselves, and this file will be sent as an attachment. And there is also what is important that this transportation layer are doing the first level structure control. But if we're sending the file, that there will be fields which is necessary. It will be controlled. So if there is some error, the user will get this error message immediately. And the third point is government side or institutional side. So it's and in this example, this is a statistical office in Estonia. So we're getting a file, we're parsing this file, and we do our own error handling, because even if there is some column, but we can control the logic, the business logic. And of course, we're sending this data further to our own database system, where all those fields will be filled. As I said, we have it's working, but we're not finalized, or its project is not finished yet. The first stage, as I told, was to get information about personal salaries, wages, and labor hours. Currently, the stage 2, we are working to getting information about the export and import for foreign trade. And as I mentioned, there was this product classification, which was necessary for this task. And when we go next year about informations which are not coming, not anymore profit and loss statement, are more related with assets or balance sheet. And as we look first focus the questionnaires, which will be filled monthly, when we move on quarterly and annual questionnaires. And of course, there are some stage 5, an example, there is some specific areas or industries like agriculture or environment or fuel energy. There is a special questionnaires that we need special information. An example, which type of fuels was used, how much we're purchasing fuels, and so on. So we are, as you can see in our plan, that all this information should be ready or should be structured in next year, at the end of next year. And of course, there are a lot of which going on. And I will summarize that that if you have also the same initiatives in your country, or you're thinking, or you have also some plans, then according our practice, that I would like to point out maybe 3 key aspects that what are very important in this project. First of all, it's all about cooperation. We thought at the moment or in the beginning that we should cooperate for private companies and for our institution, but we almost forget it, that there are software vendors and software companies which providing the software by through that with data flows, so we can we should cooperate. Secondly, the data quality and the harmonized classifications, they are very important. And as I mentioned, the problem is that even in government sector, even in between the different institutions, there is a different classifications. And for user perspective, actually, there is no need to know the differences among those taxonomies, as I gave this example related with product taxonomy. So we need just one classification, and that's a duty for governments. And last but not least, I think the communication is also a key issue, because even this program in Estonia, it's active, I think, more than 5 years. We still found the persons or companies who haven't heard anything about these initiatives. So if you need any reference or more practice, you can contact with us. We are ready to share this information. And I think that's all from my side so far. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Andres, and thank you, Statistics Estonia. Unfortunately, they were unable to join us today during this webinar. So if you have any questions, and then some of you have already asked them, then do still ask them to the Slido app, and we will get back to you on the answers from Statistics Estonia. So cooperation is definitely key, but in today's world, not only private and public sector cooperation, but also international cooperation. Also international examples and how things are done differently in other places. We have a guest speaker from Austria, Gerhard Wanek, who is an IT consultant and trainer, and who will give the perspective of digital transformation in Austria.
Okay, good afternoon to everybody. I'm glad to be with you from the Austrian side and be invited to your event. Data is all we need, isn't it? So in a world of data-driven business, we all collecting data, and we have to do, let's say, positive things with that kind of data. First, give me some minutes to tell you who I am and why I think I can contribute some information to your event. I'm a business consultant. From the business side, was in huge companies several years to run my own consultancy business. I'm a certified management consultant, a certain consultant, and also a certified data security expert. I'm head of an academic course, Digital Business Transformation. In that course, we try to discuss with students how businesses today should transfer their strategy, the business model, or the processes to fulfill actual, but especially future requirements of their customers, and what digitalization can be used in that transformation. And I'm also part of a network, a consulting network called Erfolgwandler in Austria. So what is, in your opinion, the main question when we're talking about data-driven businesses? In my opinion, it's why we are collecting all this data, and why should we use that data. And let me show you a chart. In that chart, you can see how the data amount is developing up to 25, but it doesn't matter if it's 25, 28, or 30 something. What you can see, we have four main areas where data are generated and used. The first area is the entertainment area. If you think on yourself and how you use all the smart gadgets, you can imagine that more and more data is generated in the entertainment area. The second one is the non-entertainment area, but the image or video generated data area. And you can see that the more and more smart activities we're using, the more and more the imaging and the video content is coming up and generate more and more data. The third one is the productivity data. That's more or less the core data generation area of companies. Companies are run by the usage of data. It doesn't matter if it's the financial perspective or the business perspective. And there we have a lot of data which are generated. And the fourth part, in my opinion, is that part which will be increasing in a very fast way in the future. That's the data which are generated by embedded system, means Internet of Things, or all the technical devices or technical gadgets or technical things which are generating data on their own, and how this data can be used. On the right hand, you see some buzzwords which are driving, in my opinion, that growth of data. It's the IoT, as I mentioned. It's the 5G technology. It's also the whole topic of big data. Doesn't matter what big data in details mean. The smart everything, if you think on smart living, smart cities, smart production, also the whole mobility or autonomous driving sector, artificial intelligence, virtual reality, augmented reality, the whole thing of digital business. If you should think of the whole online business, for example, especially now in the pandemic, we see that there is a big shift from local stores to online stores, and companies have to come up with solution on that kind of sales activities. The whole entertainment world, also if you think on the during the pandemic, cinemas are closed. Big film companies are thinking to release their blockbuster movies either in a mixed way, on streaming platforms and cinema. But now the discussion is coming up that they release their blockbuster only on streaming platform. That is a huge change in business model, but also a huge change in data generation. If the more films are streamed, the more data is produced. And then the whole topic of customer behavior. Customer behavior is changing dramatically. If you think on your own, how your behavior on doing banking businesses has changed the whole usage of smartphones and what are now doing on smartphone or with the smartphone, and what is the effect on data. So we're facing a situation where more and more data is produced, and that means the capability to use that data have to improve more or less in at least the same way. And how can these happen? So what to do? And you see also a graph starting on the left side with the black boxes. We have several, or companies have several data types they are facing. And in my opinion, the company should have a clear understanding which kind of data types are really useful for the company. These data types have to be classified and have to be defined. Otherwise, it's not possible to use them in a structured way and in a goal-oriented way. In the second step, the green bubbles, these addresses the data sources. So it's not like in the former way you have a one-way communication to the customer and you have a single source to generate data. In our world, we are facing several sources of data which can be addressed, and the company should have a clear understanding which are the relevant, the important data sources, and which kind of data each data source is generating, and what you can extract from the data source and use in the systems of a company. If we go to the gray arrows, we have 5 relevant topics when we're talking about structured data usage, which we have to address. The first topic is a company has to define a clear strategy, what data should be used for which goal, and what activities should coming up from that kind of data usage. The second one is the collection of the data. Companies have to have a clear plan how they collect specific data, and is this data collection the right data they need for specific goals. The third one is the validation of the data. Not every data is in the right shape, in the right structure, or in the right quality which we collected, and you have to work on that data and bring the data in the right quality, the right shape, and the right structure, and ask if these data are correct according to a specific question or not. And if you have done that, then we come to the fourth part. It's the data analysis. So that is more or less the definition of the right questions, how to use that data. And that brings me to the fifth arrow, and that means you have to come up with use cases. If you have, let's say, prepared and managed data, then you have to define use cases, what are to do with that data, and especially what is the interaction or the relation to your business model. That's the black box above, and the black box below, the business value. What value comes up from the usage of that data? And in total, in your company, you have to come up with capabilities to answer all that questions to be really able to do that kind of digital business transformation. And that brings me to my last slide. Which resources or capabilities do you need to find proper answer on all that question? When we are talking about data usage and data-driven business, you have to have a proper technical infrastructure. And therefore, now we have a time where you have several possibilities to organize the technical infrastructure. It's not necessary to build everything on your own and to run everything on your own. You can define a clever, smart sourcing strategy and manage several cloud possibilities, for example. The second one is the application infrastructure. You have to ask yourself which application, which software services do you need to run your business in a proper, efficient, and successful way. And then you have to screen on the market which provider are providing you software services on a specific topic, for example, on the ERP topic or CRM topic or PPM topic or what buzzwords you can imagine. And sometimes in my experience, I see that especially small or mid-sized companies do not have the capability to raise the right questions or to have a good overview of the possibilities which are given, for example, to decide on the right CRM system. So therefore, you have to use external resources and try to work with consultants or specialists on that topic to find the best solution or the best application service for your company. The third infrastructure topic is the process infrastructure. You have to have a clear understanding about your business processes. Does mean on the one hand on your core processes, on the other hand on your administrative processes, but also on your sales and communication processes. And clear understanding means you have to have a definition, you have to have a documentation, and you have to have a clear understanding how these processes can be built up in these applications we are talking a couple of minutes ago. The fourth is the know-how infrastructure. So you have to think about your human resources and the know-how which is provided by your human resources. And do you have the right know-how potential or the right human resources for future questions? And what can you do to attract for example, younger people, which maybe have a different understanding for how work should be organized than in former times we are having. And do the company have the capabilities and the attractivity to attract such young people with their know-how maybe you need to fulfill future customer requirements. The fifth one is the financial infrastructure. Sure, you have to have the financial capability to run such product, to do the investment, and to come up with a business case on that investment, especially in maybe pandemic or economical critical phases. It's not that easy to come up with that financial capabilities to have that investment. And it brings me to the last one, that's the time perspective. As we are living in a dramatically fast changing world, you have in the best way you started already. If you're not started right now, you have to start right now. Don't make too long plans in the future, because then you're losing more and more ground. So you have to have also capability on time that you can provide for such projects or for project which enables you to use your data in a perfect way. You have to have the capability to address resources right now on that topic. And if you don't have all that thing internal, maybe small and mid-sized companies do not have all these infrastructure resources internal, then you have to see how external resources can help you on that. So I hope there were some inputs and some thoughts which can help you in running your data-driven business. Thanks a lot for your interest and for your patience. Looking forward to further discussion with you. If you have any questions, I'm glad to answer it right now. If not, you have my contact details. Feel free to contact me.
Thanks a lot, Gerhard. That was the most interesting presentation. And yes, we do have a couple of questions here. As we see, digital transformation lets companies to gather more and more data, a lot of detailed data. What about the governmental reporting requirements? Should companies actually share some of this huge amount of data in detail with the government, with the authorities?
Interesting question. Not easy to answer, because I think a lot of data will be shared already with the government. If we are thinking about the Austrian example, Finanz Online, so every company is linked to the government on an online base and share their financial data with the government on an online and regular base. There are a lot of advantages to sharing that data. It's easy, it's efficient, it's clear and transparent. Maybe then we come to also to a little bit the negative side. So maybe you don't have enough time to think about and to prepare the data which fits you best, and maybe the government uses the data for optimize their understanding of tax and not your understanding of tax. Don't talking about illegal things, but you have enough possibilities on a legal base to optimize your tax payment. So that's one thing. And another thing is, if you're talking or if you're thinking about private data and GDPR topics, in my opinion, a person should have the possibility to decide on his or her own who is using which kind of data for what topic. And if companies have a lot of personal data, we have to ask or have to look very careful which of that data is being handed over to government authorities. Talking about health information, for example, or other personnel like political orientation or union activities or what else to government. So we have to be very careful and think at least twice who is becoming which kind of data and what for what reason.
I think this is a very reasonable approach, and as we see in our webinar today, Estonia is very cautious in just going forward with the traditional reports to be changed to data-driven detailed reports. So basically, if the companies have a lot of data, they can utilize it, but they don't have to share it with the state. Thank you, Gerhard, very much for sharing the Austrian perspective of data economy with us, and hope we can be cooperating in the data-driven reporting projects between Austria and Estonia in the nearest future. Thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot for the invitation and looking forward for the cooperation.
Thank you, Gerhard, for this input and the Austrian experience. So we've heard about the public sector. What about the private sector initiatives? We're going to hear from Andres Lille next. Andres Lille is from Tieto Every, and they have been developing the My Company data service, which we're going to discuss in the panel as well afterwards. So thus they and Tieto have become an important partner in real-time economy sphere and also data-driven reporting. Andres.
Based on concept of hello, I am Andres Lille from Tieto Every. I participated in business program already many years. I will introduce this IOB initiative, how it looks like in Estonia. And let's start it. What it is. Internet of Business, or IOB, is a series of projects that are based on the concept of real-time economy. The real-time economy means that all business transaction data is in digital format and are widely used automatically and in real time. And IOB projects will help this situation happen. And we have already a 4-year history in IOB. There was a planning phase at the beginning in 2016, and the second phase was 2017, and there were many participants already in this project, different e-invoicing operators from Estonia, from Finland, and also a participant from Latvia. And the project, you can say there were different topics, but the main keyword was e-invoicing and implementing e-invoicing standard in Estonia. In 2020, we started a new project. There was also keyword e-invoicing, but we used also such standards like XBRL, GL, and accounting entry data standards. And we produce different artifacts, and there were both documents and also a software module called My Company Data. Project time was 12 months, and budget was approximately 1 million euros. This money comes from Europe, from INEA, and we almost did all works in this project, but there seems that we should have more projects already. This was IOB 2, and we need also IOB 3. And project partners were different companies from Estonia at this project. Most of them are ERP service providers, and also there were Association of Estonian Accountants and ITL Digital Lab, that is which is a IT companies association. There were 3 main activities. The first was introducing XBRL GL standards and pre-analysis on this standard. The second phase was implementation of XBRL GL standard into the existing ERP systems. And third thing was development of this so-called My Company Data service. This is a integration service for this ERP software. participant software. And there were different outcomes. One was the My Company data software and different modules in ERP software and also documentation. We documented all the implementation, we can say roadmap. We produced accounting entry data standard that is based on XBRL-GL. And this is the main, we can say, backbone of this project. Okay, and the next topic in my presentation is introduction to My Company data service. I was chief analyst in this part of the project and can tell you what the My Company data service is. Purpose of this service or services. Main purpose is to ensure electronic mobility of transaction data between different parties. And the parties can be companies, private companies, different authorities, government authorities, and all different parties who can who should use accounting information, accounting entry information, or reports on this data. The second purpose is to provide a tool for single data submission on the state authorities. It means that if you put up your report or transaction data to the My Company data service, the state authorities can read from the My Company data service all this data, and you should not do this data exchange many times for different authorities. You should do only one time. You should put up this data to My Company data service, and the authorities can get this data from there. And the third side of these services is data quality assessment and validation. And we developed such services which use data consumer rules, data validation rules, and also accounting entry data standard data rules. This is very important that data quality assessment is fully automatic. You put up your accounting data entry and you can get a validation report from My Company data service. And this is a slide of this accounting entry standard. You can see here, there are different columns. There are in Estonian terms, also description of the term, and XBRL-GL element names. And of course, because this is an international project, we have all this in English also. Okay, what the My Company data service is. There are central system and data exchange services in this system, and there you can see accounting service providers, third parties, Statistics Estonia, Tax and Customs Board, and all these entities can use my company data services for data exchange. My company data service is a software. There is no user interface. This is very important. You can use only API. You can do interface for your ERP or governance system, and you can use via API this my company data service. My company data is not a central system. This is there can be several service providers. This is not one central system, and the owner of the transaction information determines what service provider he will use. And important things are that my company data service related to X-Road. There is capability to use X-Road that is difficult for private companies now. And the client does not have to have the X-Road capability. This is a very important thing. And the second important thing is that my company data service is linked to the e-invoicing operator. And also the client does not have to have a separate e-invoicing operator. Okay. There you can see the process, how you can use my company data service. The ERP should send accounting entries to the MCDS, and the MCDS will do the validation of this data. And the second phase is the e-invoicing operator can get accounting entry from the MCDS, and MCDS sends all invoice entries to the invoicing operator, and the operator will send to the invoice recipient this information. And also the e-invoicing operator will produce invoice status data and also small validation report. And then the MCDS receives this data, and the ERP who sent this data to the MCDS can get validation report, invoice status report from the MCDS finally. Okay, I have limited time at the moment. There are different use cases how you can use this my company data service, but I should say that this is not very easy to use new way of reporting. The MCDS reporting means that you can send microdata to data receiver or data user. We used to use reports, but this new way can help us to send microdata. That is a bit different thing. You can use microdata, and then you can get more information from the data. This is very, very important, but also is important that the data you you must read not hundreds of records or thousands of records, but millions of records. And this is a lot of data, and this needs technical ability. Okay, that is all from my side, and I thank you all.
Thank you, Andres Lille from Tieto. So to conclude today and to conclude the private sector initiatives and conclude what the private sector has been doing and what they think about this topic and the real-time economy as a whole, we have a panel, 5 distinguished private sector agents or actors that we're going to hear from. So to the panel now. We have 5 people in this panel. I will introduce the panelists and then we can start. So we have Kaido Heinsalu from Tieto Estonia. We also have Andres Lilleste from Unified Post, Jaanus Reismaa, Simple Books, Eero Käärik, Account Studio, and also Margus Tammeraja from the Association of Estonian Accountants, who you've already seen today with us. So to start off the panel, as all of the panelists come from different companies, different places, I would ask them to introduce themselves and their role in what they see the future and also the data-driven reporting as it is. So perhaps we'll start with Kaido from Tieto, who also has been developing the My Company data service that we've already spoken here a lot about.
Yes, hello from my side. I'm Kaido Heinsalu from Tieto Estonia, and as my colleague Andres Lille just said and introduced, we are the main developer of My Company data service in this project, and Tieto former name Tieto has been involved in IOB, Internet of Business, previous project as well, and has been involved with real-time economy projects in Estonia quite long ago already. So this is a, let's say, interesting journey for us. We're really looking forward to successfully end this project and looking forward for next projects together with this project participants already mentioned here, cross-border companies or organizations as well. So this is from my side maybe all for intro in this subject. Definitely the subject itself is really important and needs continuous effort to make this automated reporting happen. Technology is there, capabilities are there, but there are lots of other nuances that needs to be focused in the future as well.
Thank you, Kaido. Andres Lilleste from Unified Post.
Hello, from my side. Unified Post as such is e-invoice operator, the biggest in the region and Estonia, and our role and target in this project was to add value to our value proposals, what we do for our customers, and also to extend service availability to customer segments who are not using ERP, for example, or also from the other hand to provide the mid layer to transport invoices from one ERP to the endpoint through the MCDS service, and vice versa also, that if somebody would like to send something to MCDS but does not have access, then again to use our potential connection there. And in total, definitely a project what looks to the future and then will add value maybe in next years. But already this year we can start testing and piloting on the market to see that how it works. Thank you.
Thank you. We also have the perspective of ERP vendors, and firstly Jaanus Reismaa from Simple Books.
Hello, I'm from Simplebooks, and Simplebooks is, I can say, one of the leading ERP software providers in Estonia for micro and small companies. I dare to say that Simplebooks represents micro and small companies here in this project as well. As you might know that micro companies or small companies make up to 95% or even more of the total companies in many countries. So we see this project as a very good start to make a lot of automation and opening up data available to small companies as well, which has been in large the playground of bigger companies so far, but we hope to change that in the future.
Thank you, Janos. We also have Eero Käärik from Account Studio.
So hello from me as well. My name is Eero, and I'm from Account Studio, as already said. And Account Studio is also an ERP system here in Estonia, perhaps one of the oldest ones. And in this project, our role was to participate all these processes, starting from semantics and design of the data structures behind this system. And of course, as a final stage, we also implemented reporting and invoicing information transport to the MCDS and from MCDS in our own software. And right now, of course, we are really very excited because, as we can see, this project might lead us to big changes and big developments toward complete automation of business processes, from simplest invoice forwarding up to reporting and statistics and everything involved. So hopefully we will achieve these goals.
Thank you. So as Margus Tammaraja has already had the floor and had several minutes to discuss who he is and what he has done and why his perspective is important here, I would start with a bit of a specific question, or a more specific question. So we've spoken a lot about what this data-driven reporting is and what its limitations might be, but also what its gains might be. How do you project, is this something that will get rid of the traditional reporting as a whole at all and in some point? And if so, when do you think that might happen?
Thank you. I think this is already happening. And as we can see, Estonian statistics is already receiving traditional reports in data-driven format. As an accountant, I have to admit that perhaps we are kind of digging our own graves here by diminishing the part of traditional reporting and the role of accountants whose job it has been to prepare all those reports. But on the other hand, I think that all smart accountants think about how to reduce the administrative burden of the companies and how to actually create more value. And creating today's reports is not so very valuable task. It's basically a lot of valuable time wasted on routines. So accountants are included in this project and are very keen on innovation because we can see we free up our own time, what we can use for, let's say, advisory services and other more important tasks. And as we can see from statistics and tax authorities and other ministries, then everybody is very much excited on creating the model for data-driven reporting so that gathering data, processing data at governmental level will be also a lot more easier. So everybody should be happy, and these things are happening already today.
So cutting costs, both time and money-wise, definitely is a goal for everyone. Yet usually it comes with the flip side. And data protection is something that is very important to people, especially nowadays. Kaido Heinsalu, do you think data protection and the idea whether my data is safe or where is it, or how do I know that my data is safe, is this the flip side of the benefits that my data service brings us?
Yeah, definitely, it's an issue or the subjects to think of, but it's not the flip side. It's actually the goal or the path that we are taking right now grants a better data protection than it is right now. Just people and organizations are used to the old processes and the old way of sharing information and managing information and data, and they understand how it works. Thus, people trust it more than new ways of doing things. But this technology and automated reporting and so on grants a better data protection than it is right now with existing processes and the existing ways of managing and handling the data. So actually, we are moving towards better data protection, but the thing is, we really need to, how to say, make this understandable for the people, for the roles and organizations who doesn't be every day or daily deal with the technology and don't understand so deeply how it's done and how the data is protected. So yeah, the short answer is we are moving towards a better future in terms of data protection, but it still needs understanding from all the participants and all the companies and persons involved of this new way of thinking and doing things.
So, Jaanus Reismaa, you represent small companies, and coming back from what Kaido just said, that companies also, or end consumer also needs to be somehow involved or educated. Me as an end consumer company representative, do I even have a say, or will at one point my company data service will be used and I would just have to accept that?
I think definitely you have a say as a customer. You have a choice to either use a service or not. But regarding what Kaido said earlier, regarding security, I think it's an kind of like old issue that with all the big changes that have been in the past as well, it's difficult to like inform and educate everybody. When it comes to security, I think it's still quite a big misconception that data is more safe when it's on your personal computer. It might be true if it's not connected to internet, but otherwise it's just not true. And regarding my company data, there's really not a big change in. I mean, like technically, there's not a huge change compared to cloud computing, because there's the data is just in the cloud, so it's the same. But as an end user, at least in the near future, I don't see it as a mandatory option using something like my company data. And well, the further future we'll have to see how it goes. But I don't see it as a big issue.
Thank you. Coming to Eero Käärik, ERP vendors and software developers are definitely the key to having my company data service into the masses. What do you think are the main benefits, what they get or you get? And more importantly, do you think this is something that will be widely used in the near future?
Yes, I believe it will be widely used. And well, what we get out of this project or this kind of project, we get kind of a platform for different integrations and data communication systems or solutions that we can build into our systems. And as it will be created like a one standardized data exchange platform, and we won't have to develop different data exchange solutions for every need in future. Instead, we can just stick with this one and use it. And even more important for our customers, of course, is what they get out of it, as it simplifies our life and gives us chance to develop faster and more and with less errors. And of course, our end users and customers will just get a better service from us, to say it shortly.
Andres Lilleste, you mentioned earlier that my company data service also provides value for your service and the services you provide. What do you think other stakeholders, the public sector, necessary public sector agents or actors, what do they need to do to increase or help the change or make the change faster?
Basically, in every e-service segment, what we ever take, is it the European example or some other global example, then always somehow it is so that the government is the market leader. They usually show the way and start to use some application, some format, some new way of communication reporting. And after that, it comes also to business or other market segments. And in that initiative here, it's basically the same story that government or our tax authority already had the XBRL project in up and running their applications. And now they will add additional features there. And now private companies, ERPs here, for example, and the invoice operators start to use the same format, connect to the same platform. So it's all spread all over the market. And what we see here also additional potential is that in one point also our not just reporting, but also way of invoicing can be changed. And as e-invoicing is our core service and core platform, what we are providing to our customers, then definitely we want to be the front runners, not somewhere in the middle or in bottom of the list. So that's why we definitely value the project and see huge potential there.
Margus, you mentioned that accountants definitely also see it as a positive effect, as a way of creating value and using or saving time and energy and money resources. What is necessary for other stakeholders besides accountants to do, or what they need to do in order to make the change also faster and increase the possibilities of everyone's lives being simpler in the near future?
Actually, if we look at the societal level of changes, what could be coming with the data-driven reporting, then we can say that we might reduce a gray economy. And of course, money laundering issues have been lingering around. So we can actually start fighting against money laundering more efficiently if we have data-driven reporting in place. So I think that all companies who are interested in sharing the data with other companies who are able to read this data and reuse this data are a lot more happier because they don't have to create specific links between specific ERP or other information systems. So if we established a standardized format for changing transactional level detailed data, then it will be beneficial for all stakeholders in the country and cross-border.
Thank you, Margus. We have a question from the audience. Perhaps it's best suited to Kaido, but also everyone else can pitch in. As the benefits of my company data services definitely increases when it has more users and more people are using it, more companies and more vendors, do you see that at one point this might be made mandatory by the state to all companies?
Thanks. A really good question. Yes, this is actually a good point, and in the future, yes, depends how the market takes it, how the market enables it. Depending on that, I'm quite sure that in the future, I cannot say is it after 2 years or 3 years, 5 years. I think it will be mandatory. Basically the same way as we was with e-invoicing. It's let's say country by country and segment by segment. It has been done mandatory to exchange invoices as e-invoices. So because it's a reasonable way of going, and if the market doesn't want to let go the old processes and old habits, then as Andres Lilleste said, public sector needs to show the way, and at some point I'm sure it will be made mandatory. That's why I'm saying that it's rather reasonable and easier to adopt it before this mandatoriness will happen than to wait this until this moment. So I'm asking everyone to be open-minded, serve end users, service providers, and everybody else involved to think along, to participate in those initiatives and adopt this new way of thinking earlier than it will be made mandatory. I'm sure it will happen someday.
Thank you, Kaido. To conclude, as we unfortunately do not have a lot of time for this panel today, one more question from the audience. So what can the tax agency do to contribute more automation in processing calculation of tax in ERP systems? Perhaps Jaanus or anyone who feels.
I think there are perhaps better informed parties here, but as far as I can see from micro and small company sides, I think tax office is doing quite a good job, but there is still a lot of stuff to do, like adopting this XBRL GL format, for example. So from the small company sides, the VAT and social tax reports are the foremost issues that need solving, but I think those are halfway there.
Thank you, Jaanus. If anyone from the panel doesn't feel like contributing on this issue, I'm sure this question can also be more answered after the panel and the webinar. So as the time is nearing to our end, we need to conclude our panel now. I would like to thank all of the panelists for making the time to join us here online today. Thank you. Data-driven reporting definitely is important. This is the future, as we've heard today. Me, from the perspective of a board member of a small NGO, even I'm looking forward to it, making my time easier and my reporting commitments lesser. Hopefully this is a future and not just a visionary future at some distant time point, but a new future, something we can look towards soon. So I hope everyone found what they're looking for today. Probably if you can quickly add a question to Slido, you will get answers to them after this panel and after this webinar as well. Let's look at the future, and real-time economy definitely is that future. Thank you, and let's meet again soon.